So about a year ago, we have a guy come into the shop, and kind of excited because I like the Panther platform cars. I like the old Fox body platform and stuff like that. I have a Panther platform car, 2006 Lincoln Town Car, and I have a 1985 Thunderbird. I love those cars. My dealership knows I love those cars. So they bring in a Mercury Cougar, and it's got the typical brake pedal going to the floor. And I'm looking over it. I noticed there's a lot of bushings that are rotted away in it. The motor's got some leaks, but not too bad. Seems to start up and run pretty good. Fuel tank's rotted out on it. The brake lines and stuff going from the driver's side frame past the fuel tank, they're all rotted out. Got brake fluid going to the ground, and that's the main thing with those Mercury Cougars is they like to rot out right there by the fuel tank, and then you can't get in there to do any kind of repairs. So you either got to get rid of the line before the fuel tank and run your own line, or you actually got to pull the fuel tank down and figure out where it's leaking. But at that point, you may as well just go ahead and replace all the brake lines in the car, because they all, at that particular situation, when it gets that bad, they're probably all going to go. So when you replace the line and get all that line pressure and stuff nice on the line that's split, it's going to transfer over to one of the other ones that are about to split, and you're going to be right back into the dealership or shop getting them repaired again. I had a lot of time tied up in this car. One, for the simple fact the customer dropped the car off and didn't have the right key to go with the car, so every time I try to start it, it was a weird situation where he changed the lock cylinder out, but the locks, I don't know, it was weird. There were so many different stories about, you know, the way the key would go into the ignition and the lock cylinder, and then how he had to fight it and jiggle it back and forth and stuff. And then you could see on the key how there was like, it looked like somebody had tried to correct a miscut on a key with like a little Dremel drill or something to make it work, and it got into a real rough situation where I almost started to second guess whether or not this car was stolen. But to confirm whether or not it was stolen, the VIN number and everything still popped up to this gentleman. It was still in the original name of when the vehicle was built, and the original warranty was put on the car back in the mid-90s. So it was his car. I mean, clear as day it was his car. But, you know, it was just a really, really weird situation overall. And I get to a point where I start pulling wheels and stuff off of it. I'm ready to start pulling fuel tank, and then the customer comes in. He comes in and he sees what I'm doing and everything, and he really loves this car, and he's like, you know, I don't know, let's think about trading it in. Then again, I don't want to get rid of it, and he gets emotional and he's crying, and then he sees it up in the air with all the rust underneath the car, and I point out all the problems that are wrong with it, and I said that this is just the beginning. I mean, I've only got a couple hours into this thing, inspecting it and stuff like that, and trying to find a plan of action and where we want to go. So I could find a lot more with this vehicle. And you know, seeing as how I'm going to have to do this whole rear end, I'm going to have to drop the whole cradle and everything out of this thing. The fuel tank's got to come out of this thing. I'm going to be running all new brake lines throughout this car and stuff for safety reasons. You know, you might want to think at this point about trading it in, because it's going to be thousands of dollars to get this car back up and running and on the road. But then there's still so much rust and stuff all over underneath it that you really want to keep it and then find out you're Fred Flintstoning the car a year from now. I mean, it's up to you, man. Well, yeah, you know what? Just put the wheels back on and hold off for now. And okay, fine. Put the wheels back on, put everything back together, put it back outside. A couple days later, go ahead and start working on the car again. Okay, fine. But, you know, get the car back in the shop after fiddling with the key and everything else and trying to get this thing to actually, you know, shift into gear so I can drive it in the shop. And then with no brakes, and you're pumping the brakes, it's losing brake pressure constantly because the hole's so big in the brake line. Finally, I get the vehicle back in the shop, get the wheels and everything off, start working on it. I get one of the brake lines removed from the back to the front, and then I start on another one a couple hours later, because I had another vehicle come in that was really important, and this guy's vehicle was going to be at the shop for a while, so it was kind of like a filler vehicle for me in between jobs. And here I've got, you know, pepper rust all over the ground where I've been knocking this thing apart, and it's just brake fluid all over the place. It's nasty. It's a nasty situation to begin with. And I took it as a challenge, you know, that kind of stuff challenges me. I get another vehicle and hit some programming stuff, front brake work, and there was an oil leak. I get that taken care of, and then I get back on the gentleman's car. By the time I get back on his car again, he comes into the shop, and he's kind of reminiscing and stuff about the whole vehicle again, and then he sees how much time up, you know, that I'm going to have in it. All this, I think he was like freaking out. Some kind of remorse going on where he was rethinking what he was actually deciding to do. And he bailed on the job. Said he didn't want to do it anymore. That he was going to pay me for my time that I already had in it. Just go ahead and put everything back together and put it back outside. So that at that point, we pretty much knew, and he pretty much knew, that we weren't going to give him another chance. You know, too many times in and out, in and out, in and out, and then deciding on what he wants to do with the job and then backing out of the job over and over again. We had had enough. We figured he was an old man, that, you know, he'd been to the dealership multiple times for business and stuff like that, that we could trust him, so we trusted him. Come to find out, probably wasn't the best idea, because we put the car back outside, and a week goes by, no call from the guy. 2 weeks go by, no call from the guy. A month goes by, no call from the guy. 2 months goes by, no call from the guy. After a while, the value of it sitting there and all the amount of times that I've had it in and out of the shop with the diagnosis and the labor I had into starting to remove the brake lines and stuff like that had pretty much exceeded the value of the car. The guy wasn't going to come back for the car. He just left the car there, walked away from it, never came back to get it. About 6 months after all that, with enough paperwork and stuff from the dealership, the guy's car actually got seized and sent off to auction. Now, what he got at auction, I don't find that stuff out. It's none of my business. But it's kind of a hairy situation when these cars come in that are that bad off and that rusted, and they're not of any kind of real value anymore. That you have to be really, really, really careful, because those are the vehicles you could really get screwed on. Just figured I'd share my story with you guys and open up the work week with maybe something a little interesting. Y'all be blessed. Take care.